Texas Math Mundo audience, are we in store for a spectacular treat today? We have legendary coach, the wizard maker himself, Mr. Leo Ramirez Sr. in the house. Coach of the the legendary McHi Wizards for over 30 years with 20 state championships to his name. Mr. Leo Ramirez, legendary coach, right ahead. Let me take a quick moment and ask you that if you enjoy this sort of content, that you please hit the subscription button and the notification bell, smash that like button, and leave a comment below. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm, and let's spread this content, let's spread this joy to many, many more people. Again, legendary coach Leo Ramirez Sr. right ahead. My name is Saul Cantu, and this is Texas Math Mundo. Are we in store for a spectacular treat today? We have Mr. Leo Ramirez Sr., a legendary coach in the house. Leo Ramirez Sr. is the founder and owner of RAND Materials, has been presenting workshops and writing test materials and instructional mathematics workbooks for elementary, middle, and high school over 40 years. As a mathematics coach at McAllen High School for 31 years, his teams captured 20 team state championships in number sense and calculator applications. His UIL, TMSCA, and classroom achievements have brought him numerous accolades, including the Dinius UIL Sponsor Excellence Award in 1991, Reader's Digest Hero in Education in 1992, Texas Teacher of the Year in 1993, Disney's American Teacher Award finalist in 1994, Tandy's Corporation Scholar Award in 1995, USA Today's Teacher Award Honorable Mention in 1999, HEB Excellence Award finalist in 2004, and numerous TMSCA Coach of the Year awards. He served as the first president of TMSCA. And that's me trying to keep it short, Mr. Ramirez. That's me trying to keep it short.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is such a treasure for me. I'm so happy you're on the show. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, let's start with the present. How are you doing? How have you been handling the pandemic?
Well, things are okay. Luckily, in my case, the work that I do is indoors in my apartment. My wife and I live here, and I tutor students online from around Texas. In the past, I've tutored students from from Missouri, and one time, one of the students from Texas that I was tutoring, he went to India for the summer, a couple of summers, and I was tutoring him online from India.
Wow.
So I've been using Skype and Tutor. Currently, all my students are middle school students. They're either sixth graders, seventh or eighth graders. Next year, I'm going to have 4 high school students. So I'm going to have, but I've tutored all levels, elementary. The youngest that I've ever tutored is a second grader. And I've tutored up to seniors in high school.
Mr. Ramirez, I must say, throughout the years, we've used your materials, from a coach's perspective, and like for example, the number sense videos, and your explanations are so clear and so concise and easy to follow, man. You really have a gift for teaching.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm sure that takes up a lot of your time, but when you're not working, how do you enjoy life? What are your hobbies and interests?
Well, I enjoy watching TV programs on TV, even though some of them are not what people would imagine that a math teacher like I would be watching. But I do enjoy watching The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, American Idol, America's Got Talent. A lot of those reality shows, I enjoy watching those. And then there's some other programs on TV like The Good Doctor, Grey's Anatomy, Station 19, Magnum PI that I enjoy watching. And I enjoy listening to music. And in my case, I really enjoy listening to Golden Oldies. Uh, so I have Sirius XM. So I listen to Channel 73, uh, Golden Oldies. Um, but listening to music, and sometimes when I'm going to tutor something new, and I need to research it, sometimes I look at YouTube or Google and try and get more information. It's incredible that I have so much already, and I'm still looking for more every day.
Oh, awesome. I guess learning never stops.
No.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I still can't believe I'm talking to you because I've heard about you. Your legend precedes you. I've heard about you through the years, so I know what you've accomplished, and I know you've done some great things, man. So I know you've done some great things. I wanted to ask. So do you? So you tutor quite a bit. So you do stay a little bit involved with the UIL and the TMCA competitive mathematics.
Yes. The students that I tutor want me to teach them number sense, calculator, and mathematics, and they participate in UIL and TMSCA. And last year, my sixth grader, Pavan, he won the state championship in number sense calculator and came in second in mathematics in 3A. And my other students all qualified for the state meet. And But I've done very well through the years. I've had a lot of students that I tutor that won state championships and been doing very, very well.
Well, you certainly have a proven track record. You certainly have a proven track record, and the legendary McHi Wizards. I'm gonna be asking you about them shortly. Okay.
Okay.
So you've inspired so many students throughout the year. So I want to know a little bit about your background. Where are you from? Born and raised? What is your cultural heritage?
Okay, I was born in Mission, Texas, back in 1951, and my parents were not well to do, but we never missed money because we had a lot of love. And as far as the culture, um my mother's parents were from Mexico, from Reynosa, and my father's parents were from Monterrey. And um But as far as growing up, I remember very well during the summers that we would go pick cotton and do field work, especially picking cotton is what we would do. I was not very good at it. My parents and brothers were a lot better. I had two older brothers than me. My oldest brother Raul and my middle brother Rogelio. And My dad and them and my mom were excellent at picking cotton. Uh, I probably made enough to pay for my lunch, And back then, our lunch consisted of either a boiled potato or beans, uh, uh, beans, a bean taco with flour tortillas. And growing up, I don't remember eating meat very much because we couldn't afford it. And in my case, uh, again, growing up, I used to, we had a small house. It only had two rooms. It had a bedroom and a kitchen. And in the kitchen, there was a bed that became double bed at nighttime. And my brother slept there. And I, because we only had one other bed, had to sleep with my mom and dad. And I slept with my mom and dad until I was 12 years old. People won't believe that. That's how poor we were. And I didn't mind it, except that I always asked to sleep by the window because if I slept in the middle, sometimes they'd be breathing at me, and I didn't want them breathing at me. So I like sleeping in the window where I could sleep facing the window. And But a lot of good memories uh, when we were out in the fields. I remember at the distance seeing dirt fly out from a pickup truck or a car, and everybody knew it was a person that was bringing cold drinks for us to eat lunch. And that was our treat for the day is a soda, either a Coca-Cola or a Sprite or Dr. Pepper. And But um, we had a very good childhood. Uh, we never missed anything with our parents, and they always supported us as far as classes in school and growing up. My brothers were in sports. My both brothers were in track in high school. My middle brother played high school football, and both brothers were excellent in baseball. Uh, in my case, I was very good in basketball. I was not very tall, but I could out jump a lot of people. And even though I was only 5'9", I could dunk the ball.
Really?
Uh, yes, I could
Wow.
jump a little high and get rebounds. And um, but no, no. When I think back of all the things that we did when we were young, playing with my cousins and my brothers, and it's kind of funny growing up. We were not allowed to go to anybody's house. They had to come to our house to play. But my grandmother would take care of us during the day when my mother and father were working. And then my father worked in the evenings also at the Buckhorn Drive-In as a projectionist.
Wow.
And my mother would work in factories where they prepared shrimp, and she also did housework and took care of kids for other people. Um, but we never missed anything because our grandparents took care of us. Our aunt, my tia Tere, would also take care of us. Uh, but like I said, I don't have any better memories of my childhood.
I'm glad you're saying this because this is gold for the younger generation. My mom from the valley would talk about las labores, the labor camps, and
Yes.
those are long, hard days out there in the fields, aren't they?
Yes, when we used to go pick cotton in Kingsville, we would live in a. They had a large kind of like farmhouse. Well, no, it was more like where they keep the hay, but it was
Barn.
very large, and most of the people that's where they lived. We were lucky enough that we got a house. It just had one room, and no, it had a room, but it was big enough that it had a little stove and a place to eat, and we had a bath, a basin for washing our face or washing our hands. Uh, but we didn't have showers or anything. We had to go out to the canal to take a bath, uh, and uh, and that's not very clean water.
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, but I remember sleeping and working from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening, and we worked every day. The only day we took a break was on Saturday. We would go to HEB, to the grocery store, and that was our treat. That they might buy us some candy or pan dulce or something. But it was once a week. The other 6 days we worked from 7 to 7.
Wow, that's rough days, man. So I'm glad you're saying this because a lot of these modern students, they forget about the old times. How rugged it was without the modern conveniences and stuff. So it's really good to hear it from you.
Yes,
Wow. So do you go to the mission school system?
yes,
So you went to
yeah.
mission
I
high
went
school?
to I went to my first year. I was in Castro Elementary for 1 year, and I was there in kindergarten, and then I went to first grade in Citriana Elementary, uh, and there I skipped a grade. I went from first grade to third grade.
Oh wow.
I was so good in everything that I did that one day I show up to school, first day of school, second grade. I show up and I'm sitting down waiting for them to call my name, and a teacher comes to the door, and she's saying, "Where's Leo Ramirez?" And my teacher, second grade teacher, tells her, "Well, he's sitting over there." And then she comes over and she says, "You're going to be in third grade this year." I said,
Wow.
"Really?" I said, "Yes, you're going to be a third grader." So I ended up skipping a grade. So when I graduated from high school, I was 17.
Wow. Wow. So did they have UIL in those days, or that's something that you were involved in those days?
Well, interestingly, they didn't have any at my school growing up that I knew of. Uh, but even though UIL started in 1910, UIL started in 1910. That means since I was born in 1951, there had to be UIL at schools, but none at my elementary school. I don't remember any in junior high. The first time that I became interested in UIL or became aware of it was I was in ninth grade in an algebra class, and my teacher, Mr. Nance, said, "Students, I'm going to give you some opportunities for extra credit, and here's my proposal. if you uh, if you are first in the class in number sense tests, I'm going to give you 5 tests, combine all the points, and whoever's first will get 10 hundreds added to your grade
Wow.
before we do the averages. And if you're second place, you'll get 9, and so on." And I thought, golly, that I would like to be first. So then after the class, I asked Mr. Nance, "Is there anybody that coaches number sense? I don't even know what it is." He says, "Yes, Mr. Smith. He coaches number sense here at the high school." And I went to Mr. Smith. But when I went to Mr. Smith, he the only tricks that he knew that he taught me were multiplying by 11, scoring numbers ending in 5, multiplying by 25, by 50, and 75.
Wow.
So as a ninth grader wanting to learn number sense, I had to do it all by myself.
Wow.
So I started, because I was in algebra, I started developing my own tricks, and that's what I did, and that's what I continue doing to this day. I'm
Wow.
always developing new tricks using my math background, but it started when I was a ninth grader.
Wow. Was Mr. Lance?
Mr. Nance
Yeah.
was my algebra teacher. Mr. Smith what became my number sense coach.
Wow, wow, wow. So, you served as an inspiration for so many generations. So many generations. You've been an inspiration. Uh, who inspired you in those days? Who were you? Who were your inspirations?
Well, in my case, um, I remember that I was inspired by my third grade teacher, Mr. Mitkeff. He was he was the third grade teacher, and he also served as choir director. And I remember one time he said that they were going to have tryouts for to be a conductor for the choir, and I thought, I think I'd like to do that, be the conductor of the choir. So then I went up and I started moving my hands and conducting, and they were playing, I think, the national anthem or something. And I tried with two other kids, and I got chosen to be the conductor for the choir. And But I always liked the way he taught, and always very funny, very engaging, motivating the students. And So from school, from elementary, he's the one that I remember like the most. Uh, and
Mr.
and
Metcalf.
then but of course, my main inspiration was my mom.
Sure.
She became my overall inspiration because no matter what, she always wanted me to study. And at home, we were all three boys, so we had to wash dishes, wash clothes, we had to sew, we had to do everything that girls do. And but If I was studying, my mom would tell my brothers, like Armando's, because they call me Leo Armando. Armando is my middle name.
Okay.
That Armando is gonna study, so don't bother him. He has to study. They were good in school, but they were not the kind that really liked studying a lot. And they preferred washing dishes and sweeping the floor and so on. But my mom always encouraged me to study and pursue my dreams. And But there were a lot of teachers that I admired in junior high and high school. Uh, but uh, in high school, the person that I think I modeled myself after was Mrs. Gossett. Mrs. Gossett was my trigonometry teacher, and in her case, everything that she did, I tried to do. And that's the thing about me growing up. I remember growing up and being in some of those farm camps during the summers, and I remember listening to parents talk to the to talk. My parents talk to other parents, and they were all talking about many times their dreams for the children, and they were saying our children are not going to work in the fields and do labor like we do. They're going to have regular jobs. They're going to be teachers and doctors and lawyers and whatever. And I remember listening to that. And at that moment, when I was only 6 years old, and I was going to be in kindergarten, I remember that I decided to become a teacher.
Wow.
And It was those parents that inspired me, because for me, it was more like I want to touch the future. And the best way to touch the future is to be a teacher.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, so where did you end up going to college, and what degree did you earn?
I went to Pan American University, and I got a Bachelor of Science degree. And at that time, I had met my wife in 1971. I graduated from college in 73. And We were dating. And in my case, I was interested in getting married. So I didn't want to go continue college because I knew I had to work if I was going to get married. So I never pursued any degree higher than the Bachelor of Science. But I remember that later on, when I was a teacher, some of the teachers would say, Leo, you know, you could make more money if you had a master's degree or if you had a doctorate degree. But I told them, the thing about me is I decided to become a teacher when I was a first grader. And the difference between me and most students is when I was in school, I was not only listening and observing what the teachers were doing, were teaching, like math. I was also trying to observe how they teach the class, how they motivate, how they discipline the students, how they do everything. And I thought, I'm going to study the best from every teacher. And when I'm going to be a teacher, I'm going to be the best teacher ever. Uh, and that's how he started as a sixth grader, observing his kindergarten teacher and then first grade teacher. And when I was in first grade, I used to finish my math work so quickly that my teacher used to say, so I would start talking with the other students to help them because they were having trouble and they needed help. But my teacher would get upset with me because I was talking without permission. And then she said, look, Leo, I'll make you a deal. If you're willing, if you're willing to help the other students, all you have to do is raise your hand, tell me what you want to do, and I'll give you permission. And you can move your chair or you can move closer to them and you can help them. It was kind of interesting that even when I was in first grade, the students could understand me in some problems even better than my teacher. You know, and that was interesting, that some things I was able to convey to them. So the talent for being a teacher started real early.
So you had a natural gift, basically, for teaching.
Yes, yes. I think most people said I had a, in Spanish, a don. I had a don for teaching, in particular, in mathematics. In mathematics, and it always was like that. Every because every year that I taught, I always tried to be better. I always tried to improve, and I was never satisfied. And when I was teaching, I used to grade myself, and the way that I would get my average, my grade for a class, is I would average the class average, and that was my average.
Huh.
And my goal was always to be above 80. If I could be above 80 for my class average, that means I was doing a good job.
Good,
Now, I
good.
don't know how many other teachers would do that, but that's what I used to do.
Hey, I'm a veteran teacher. I'd probably fail. So, so tell me about your entry into teaching. Did you start off at McHi?
Yes. The thing is that originally I wanted to teach at Mission High School, my alma mater. But then I remember that I thought, um, well, maybe I might consider Mission High School, sorry, McAllen High School, because I remember one time back then there were no tournaments, math tournaments, when I was in high school, and the only thing we had is sometimes the students from McAllen High School would get together at their school with students from Sherryland and from Mission, and they would give us some practice tests. And it was just number sense. Back then, there was no calculator. Calculator didn't start till 1983. So in 1960, well, I participated, first of all, in UIL in 69 through 70, no, from 65, 66, 67, 68, no, from 65 to 69, I participated in number sense at the high school level. And My junior year, I made it to the state meet, and I ended up fourth. The following year, they changed the categorizing of schools, and the students that had finished first and second in my category when I was a junior came into my conference.
Boy,
So therefore, when I was at regionals, they were the region, and back then only first and second got out of regional.
really?
Third, so I didn't get to go to state my senior year. But because I was exposed to McHi, and I noticed that they had coaching, and they had two coaches, Mrs. Carter and Don Scow, and uh, so I decided, well, I'm going to try and find out if they have an opening for me. So I went to talk to their principal, and when I talked to the principal, he asked me a lot of questions. I told him everything about me and my background and what I had done in student teaching at Mission Junior High, and he was very, very impressed. The only thing he said is, the only thing, Mr. Ramirez, is that normally I hire teachers that have teaching experience. So I don't know whether I can teach you, that I can actually offer you a job right now. But you're an excellent potential teacher somewhere, and um, but at this point I couldn't hire you, and so then I remember this was during the Watergate hearings. Uh, I was watching TV and watching Watergate and whatever. And I remember calling McHi and the school, and I told them that I was being offered a job at Mission. It wasn't true. I just told them that. And I told them that they wanted me to go there, but I really, really wanted to be at McHi, and which is McAllen High School. And then they told the principal. The principal called the main office, and they called me and they says, "Leo, are you Leo Ramirez?" I said, "Yes." Says, "You got a job at the high school if you want it." I said, "Really?" Says, "Yes. The principal really wants you, and we don't want to lose you to anybody else. So he wants to hire you." So that's how I got to McAllen High School.
A proud McHi Bulldog.
Yes.
That's an awesome story. Awesome story. You know, I really want to hear about the McHi Wizards. I've heard about the McHi Wizards so many times. That's a legendary math team. Can you tell me how that all started? How you all became the McHi Wizard math team?
Well, when I first was at McHi, I became a co-sponsor with Don Scow. And Don Scow, if you haven't interviewed him, would be one person that I recommend,
Okay.
because he was the head of the mathematics department. I admired him so much. He did so much for me when I was there. And later on, he became UIL number sense and mathematics director. I think he was UIL mathematics and number sense director for like 15 years. So maybe he wasn't in your radar, but I highly recommend him. And But anyway, he and I became co-sponsors. And the first year that I was with him, we had a student called Billy Fitzgerald. And the year before, when he was a junior, Billy had won the state championship.
Wow.
And then his senior year, um, I had never seen anybody like him. He was so smart. He was fast. I remember one time at a UIL activity, it's a student activity conference. Uh, 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 this young man, uh, uh, he was taking a test, a brand new test, but he took it backward. He did number 80, and then he finished number 1. And I told him, why did you do that? He says, well, the tests are very easy for me. So I wanted a challenge. So I challenged myself to go backward. I said, yeah, but the harder problems are toward the back. If you hadn't finished it, they would have counted wrong everything you skipped. He said, no, no, I knew I could do it. And he did. And he had by far the highest score of anybody. But his senior year, he didn't win the state championship. And I didn't go with Mr. Scow at that time. The school would only allow one sponsor to go, so he went with him. And Mr. Scow told me that Billy uh, had stayed up real late with the members of the speech squad. And the speech squad, they had already finished competing on Friday night, and they had an advance the following day. So they went to a restaurant, and they stayed till like 11 o'clock or almost midnight, and then they came back and they talked in the room for like 2 in the morning. So he didn't sleep very well. So in the morning, I don't think he was very alert for taking the number sense test. And that scout, I told him, well, how did he do? He says, I don't know. I just after he took the test, we came home. Later on, I found out that he didn't win. Uh, but he was so upset that he had stayed out so late, after kind of telling him, make sure you get a good night's rest. Tomorrow's the big day. And something like that happened a couple of years later, where one student on Mr. Scout's team, again, he took him to the state meet. I wasn't there. And I won't mention the student's name. That would not be good for me to mention it. The only thing is that this student, I think, somehow took some drugs uh, and got high. And by the morning, he was still not feeling very well. And when Mr. Scott went to the room to ask him, are you ready to go for us to go eat breakfast, to go to the state meet? He says, I don't want to go. He says, what do you mean you don't want to go? He says, no, I don't feel like going right now. He says, why? Well, it took him a long time before he admitted what had happened. And the following day, Don Scout got to McAllen. He calls me at my home and he says, Leo, this happened and I don't want to coach anymore. You're going to be the new coach of McAllen High School. And I said, Don, but I don't want you to quit. I was very heartbroken and very sad to see him leave because I know he was an excellent coach. He was legendary even when I was there, him and Mrs. Carter. And just to tell you how special McHi was, there were only 3 coaches at McHi, including myself, from the 1940s up to 2005.
Wow.
From the 1940s to 2005, there were only 3 coaches,
Wow.
Mrs. Carter, Mr. Don Scow, and I.
Wow.
Yeah, we were the only coaches at McHi for 3 years. And so anyway, so I become the coach at McAllen High School, and I started a rebuilding year because everybody were seniors that graduated the year before, and I didn't have anybody back, and I didn't know how to get started with new students because Mr. Scout taught the trigonometry class, and later on he taught calculus. So I just asked Mr. Scout, are there any students you recommend that I get? And I was interested in getting seniors because I thought I can develop a senior a lot quicker than a freshman. But I also recruited some of the younger students just in case for the future. And there was one student that I had, and I'm trying to remember his name. I think his name was Ernie Olivares. The last name is the one that I can't remember, or maybe it was Eddie. Oh, no, it was Eddie Olivares. And but that student, I remember that the biggest challenge that my kids always had is they wanted to beat me in the number sense test. Because I used to take tests once in a while with them, and their goal was to beat me. If they could beat me, they knew they could go to the state meet.
Wow.
And Eddie started in October, and by February he was beating me.
Wow.
And he was very, very good. And he was beating me consistently every time in February, March. He went to district, he qualified for regional. But then at regional, he didn't qualify for state. But that was my first student that I actually got out of district and went to regionals. And then the following years, I recruited some more. I had some new students on my team, and I taught them since they were freshmen. And one boy in particular, Billy Swanson. Billy Swanson became very good in number sense and calculator, and he qualified for the state meet, and I think he came in fourth in calculator, but he didn't qualify. He didn't make it in number sense, and so now I had experience going to the state meet. My first step was getting out of district to regional, and then going to the state meet.
So I'm going to say this a couple things. First, if it wasn't before, Mr. Don Scow and Billy Fitzgerald are on my radar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're on my radar. And second, I've heard about the McHi Wizards showing up in a bus to tournaments, and other people would look at you all and be so awe-inspired with your shirts that you all just looked good going to a tournament. You know?
Yeah. Well, the story behind the Wizards is what I'm going to tell you next. So a couple of years went by, and then I had a boy, Juan Raul Lopez. Juan Raul Lopez at that time became one of the best students I had ever coached. And he was super good in calculator and excellent in number sense. And well, he was on my team, and I had a girl on my team that I coached as a freshman. But this year, Juan Raul Lopez was a senior, and she was a sophomore. And she was getting so close to beating Juan Raul, and Juan Raul was the best in the region, and nobody could almost beat him in tournaments. He was so good, and I remember one time we were at regionals, and I was very, very nervous, and we were eating breakfast, and I had already eaten breakfast, but he was eating breakfast, and I told Juan Raul, golly, I feel so nervous. I feel so nervous. It seems like I want to vomit. And he says, what? He says, yes, I feel so nervous. He says, and you know what he told me? He says, Mr. Ramirez, I don't care if you're nervous. As long as I'm not nervous, that's what matters today. So I started laughing, and I told him, you're right. You know, me being nervous is, as long as you're not nervous, that's what matters. He finished second at the state meeting calculator. So that was the highest ranking that I had gotten from a student, and he was second. And in the years to follow, I had a lot of state champions, a lot of second place champions. But that year, when Juan Raul was a senior, and Kelly Wooders, she was a sophomore, Kelly Wooders. Kelly Wooders, we were going to a tournament in Westlaco, and then she told me that she was going to go in her own car because none of the kids on my team usually were very low income, so none of them had cars. I usually would give them rides to school, or their parents would come and pick them up. But Kelly Wooders told me she was going to go on her own car. I told her, make sure you get there on time. So we get there, and the meet is about to start. There's about maybe 10 minutes, and the students are all nervous, and they're saying, Mr. Ramirez, Kelly hasn't shown up, and she's our second best on the team. You know, how can we win sweepstakes without Kelly? And I told him, look, just do your best. If she shows up, fine. If she doesn't, don't worry about it. Just do your best, and that's all that matters. And those were basically my words that I used to tell my students all the time, and words that I lived by all my life were always do what you enjoy, and then do the best you can. That's all that matters.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I told them right before they left to compete. Well, they surprised me and they won the sweepstakes award.
Wow.
Just with even without Kelly, she never showed up. On Monday, she was walking down the hallway, so I meet her and I asked her, "What happened, Kelly?" She said, "No, I don't think I'm going to participate anymore." And she never gave me a reason why. I never asked her. I could assume why, uh, but uh, but since I really don't know, I don't want to make assumptions, and I was wrong.
Sure.
But she actually quit the team her sophomore year. But we went on to win a lot of sweepstakes even without her. And the younger kids developed, the freshmen and the sophomores developed very well. And But that year, I remember telling them when we were coming back from Westlaco in the bus, I told them, you know what? You are special. You have some kind of magic that it doesn't matter how or where or who you compete against. You always perform at the highest level. In fact, you're doing so well that I want to make. I don't want to be call you the McHi Bulldogs anymore. I'm going to call you the McHi Magicians. And then they said magicians. I said, well, that doesn't sound very good, does it? So they said, well, not really. And I said, well, what can be another word for magicians? I said, oh, I know what. The wizards. You'll be the McHi Math Wizards starting today. And we're gonna buy shirts. Everybody contribute money, and I'll buy shirts for you. And we'll put a wizard logo on the back, and your name and wizards in the front. And uh, so that was the beginning of the Wizards, the McHi Wizards.
So from a trip back from Westlaco, y'all started talking about it, and that's was the
Yes,
birth of the McHi Wizards.
yes,
Wow, wow, what a story. What a story. And you all were legendary. That reputation of the Wizards, of the McHi Wizards, when they showed up at a tournament with their shirts, I've heard stories about how good you look. You all intimidated people before you even got off the bus, they were intimidated.
yeah. I used to tell my students, I don't want you to I don't want you to do any talking, any showboating. If somebody asks you a question, answer them. If they need help, help them. Just be the best you can be, the best person you can be. And it doesn't matter. It's the same thing about enjoy what you're doing and be the best you can be. So when I told him that, I said, if you're a boyfriend, be the best boyfriend you can be. If you're a girlfriend, be the best girlfriend you can be. When you get married, be the best husband, or be the best uncle, or the best father, the best teacher, the best lawyer. And no matter what you do what you enjoy, and be the best you can be. And so after that, um, we were so consistent year after year after year, and people, no matter the thing about us is we were the first team, one of the first teams that ever ventured out of the valley, and going out of the valley to go to states. Harlingen High School could have gone to San Antonio, maybe, to some kind of a mathematics tournament. And I remember when I was in high school, I went to just a plain math tournament in Farfurias when I was in high school, but not UIL. And But I remember that uh, that we used to go to tournaments, and because we were so consistent, um, the other teams, their goal was to beat us, and as they became better, we became better, and as they became better, we became better. So we always were improving, and in my case, my team never looked forward to district. They were looking forward to state. Their goals were higher. They It wasn't that they were showboatish or they were cocky. It's just that they believed that if they practiced hard and if they did everything that I asked them to do, that they were going to be excelling in whatever they did. And the number one thing is just believing in yourself. And yes.
Oh, awesome. I just love hearing about this. I love hearing about this. And I want you to do me a favor. You know, you already mentioned Juan Raul Lopez. You want to drop some more names on us? Some of your favorite wizards throughout the years?
Well, some favorites, all of them are favorites.
Sure.
But some of the ones that I remember uh, in in my case, I became known as the wizard maker. So I have to tell you that story.
Yes.
Uh, in 1985, I had a freshman by the name of Homero Gutierrez, and they called him HL Gutierrez. It was Homero Luis Gutierrez. And Homero, when he was a freshman, he almost never talked. He was always silent. By that time, I was taking vans, and I would only take my math team on the van. Everybody else went in buses, and but we were making enough money through my tournaments. I was raising money through 2 or 3 tournaments that I had every year, so I could buy calculators, I could buy him shirts, I could buy tests, materials, and things that they needed. I could pay for a hotel, meals, entertainment, everything. And so anyway, when Raul started, and he was very excellent even when he was very young, and he developed and developed very, very quickly. And for many years, I always told people that he was the best student that I ever coached. Um, when I think of students that I ever coached that were among those category of the best, Juan Raul Lopez is one of the. He may be tied for number one uh, because right now I have a boy that's a freshman. No, he's a freshman in high school. I tutored him since fifth grade through eighth grade, and this student is now scoring 325 in number sense, 280 something in calculator,
Wow.
and 240s in mathematics for the highest at 250. And so this boy has a chance of maybe passing Homero. But right now, Homero would be number one. Homero finished second at the state meet in number sense, and he finished second at the state meet in calculator. Uh, and uh, and just to show you how much of a team player he was, when they announced uh, his ranking, he was disappointed. He just says, "Oh shoot," and I say, "It's okay, Homero. You tried your best, and then you can't do more than that. I'm proud of you." And then when they announced that we had gotten the team award, because now they had team competitions, when I told him that we had won the team award, he started yelling and clapping and cheering because he was more geared toward team versus self.
Awesome.
And that's what my teams were. They believed in the team first concept. They knew that if the team was good and excelled, then they were going to be good and excelled. Because the more good students on the team, the more competition, and the better they would be. Because every time that they practiced, it was like a district or regional meet.
Wow. Wow. What incredible stories. The McHi
Oh, but
Wizards.
anyway, so to tell you about Juan Raul Lopez in 1989, we had a UIL banquet at the Tower Club there in the Valley. It was the most prestigious club in all of McAllen or all the Valley probably, and it was up on the 17th floor. It was a restaurant and bar, and the food was gourmet style, excellent service from the waiters, very professional. Well, anyway, uh, every teacher got up and they told a story of their kids, like the poetry coach, the speech coach, and they presented their team and awards they had won or places they had won. And then so all of the different UIL events got up and they spoke. And I since I was the coordinator of the event, I spoke last. So then I started speaking about my team and about all their achievements and about everything they had done. Uh, and uh, and I presented the team to everybody. And then before I left the podium, Homero said, "Mr. Ramirez, I want to say something." And here's the little boy. It's a ninth grader that never said anything. He goes on and on and on and does a long speech about me and about how I had motivated him, and how I had inspired him, not only in the classroom, outside the classroom, and on the math team and off the math team. And he says, the thing, Mr. Ramirez, is that everywhere we go, everybody knows the Wizards. They just look at our shirts and they know we're there, and they know that they need to be at their best if they want to have a chance to win. And so he said, so we get all the recognition, we get all the glory, we get all the awards, the trophies, the plaques, the ribbons, the medals, the scholarships. We get everything. You don't get anything. Because you only get paid $250 a year for what you do, and you put in almost 400 hours besides teaching, about 400 hours of extra work every year on your own. And he said, so I think you deserve something special. So we have decided to give you this shirt. And from this day forward, since you made us, we want everybody to know that you're now known as the Wizard Maker.
Wow.
And that's how I got the name Wizard Maker. It was in 1989, from Homero Gutierrez and my math team. And that math team was probably one of the top two math teams I ever coached, because that year my team won 300 trophies.
Wow.
Homero won 100 by himself.
Wow.
And that was outstanding as it was. And how outstanding was 100 trophies by one person? Well, there was a picture of my team and all 300 trophies, and my team and I in the paper. But the week before, there was a picture of Mission High School and their UIL program. Now, mine was just my math team with 300 trophies. There was their entire UIL program: speech, ready writing, typing, math, science, everything. And they only had 115 trophies for their entire UIL program. Homero had 100 by himself, and my math team had 300.
Wow.
This just tells you how dominant my teams were back then.
You know, Mr. Ramirez, to put things in perspective, you know, from that little 6-year-old kid listening to the adults at the labor camps all the way to becoming the Wizard Maker, I say your journey was quite incredible. You touched the future, that's for sure.
Yes. And it's like with Homero, the thing about me is that not only I tell people when I talk to them that when I spend time with my students, when I spend time with them, I think I spend more time talking to them than coaching them mathematics, and using psychology and teaching them psychology. And an example, Homero, he was in band, and I remember he quit band so he could concentrate on math. But before he did, I remember one day I get a phone call from his mom, and his mom is telling me, Mr. Ramirez, there's something special that happened today, and you need to know about it. It says, Homero, earlier in the day after school, asked me to go to Walmart to buy him a basketball. And I bought him a basketball. He says the reason that he wanted a basketball because he said that they used to play basketball with a team and football and tennis and everything. And he wanted the basketball because he wanted his dad to play basketball with him. His dad had never played basketball with him. At least that's what I remember. That before then, he didn't really play that much with him, and that she says right now I can see him through my window, and they're playing basketball outside, and there was a great connection between my husband and Homero, and he was known as HL. Everybody knew him as HL, and I used to call him hypotenuse leg because HL is the
The
HL
theorem.
proving a right triangle congruent. And but no, there were other kids that their parents would tell me their daughters. They say, my daughter now she comes from a tournament and she's telling me about everything that they did, and she opens up. Before she was very quiet, she wouldn't talk, and now and that story was everybody was telling me that their kids were always opening up more, talking more, being more positive, being excellent role models. So the kids were being role models for their own brothers and sisters.
Your influence reaches untold places as a teacher. It takes a special teacher to be able to get the most out of their players, out of their students. And there's no telling where your influence ends, if ever. You know, uh, I do want to get into a couple things because I'm sure you have many, many stories, but I do want to ask something. A critical organization in the math and science scene is the Texas Math and Science Coaches Association. I would like you to say a few words about that association. You served as the first president?
Yes. TMSCA, I think, was founded around 1983. That's kind of what I remember. It was the early 1980s, and the the organizers of it of TMSCA were a coach from Converse Judson, and it was Mr. Anderson, James Anderson. And James Anderson was one of the founding fathers of TMSCA. And there was a person from Dangerfield that also helped. And I think Andy, I'm trying to remember at that time whether Andy Zapata was already involved or not. Uh, but there were like 4 or 5 coaches that got together and they wanted to form a organization where competition would be by grade level instead of by varsity and freshmen. And but but the missing link is they said there are a lot of excellent students coming out of South Texas now that we need somebody from the valley to kind of represent South Texas and south of San Antonio. And then they said, well, who would be the best to get for that? They said, well, it'll be the wizard maker, Leo Ramirez. Well, by that time, I wasn't known as the wizard maker, but it was Leo Ramirez, the coach of the Wizards. And so they asked me if I would help him with recruiting people and talking about TMCA and so on. So that's how it kind of started in the early 1980s. And when we first started, we wanted to have a state meet. And I remember that we didn't have I think the first thing we had to worry about were tournaments, like test number 1, test number 2, test number 3, the tournaments. So we decided to have test writing parties. So, for example, in my case, I would get together with Mr. Natras from Cherryland High School. He's passed away, and Mr. The coach from Harlingen. I'm trying to remember his name. I'll probably remember it in a little bit, and I'll tell you. But the coach from Harlingen and the Tony Lopez from San Isidro. Tony Lopez is the coach of Hilario Alvarado. Yeah.
Wow.
And anyway, Um, so we all got together and we wrote tests, and then they picked tests for the tournaments, and that was the first year. But then we were going to have the state meet, and I told him, "Golly, I don't think we should write these tests. We should get somebody for Team SCA to become a big organization and to be recognized. We have to get the state directors to write it." And they said, "Well, how are we going to get them?" I said, "Well, let me talk to them. I'll talk to them and ask them directly." So, will you? And I said, "Yes." So I called at that time. Uh, I called Don Scow and I asked him. Let me make sure that he was. Yeah, I think by then he was state director. I asked Don Scow uh, uh, if you would mind writing the number sense for us for the state meet, and he said he would, and we paid him I think $100 or something. Back then, that was a lot of money, and then I talked to Dr. Burrell and Dr. Cogdell about it to see if they would write a test for TMSCA for calculator, and they said they would. And then I can't remember who the science people were, but I had to talk to the science directors and get all of them on board. So that made when people knew that TMSCA had the UIL directors writing the state meet tests, they wanted to show up and participate. But initially, we didn't have any money in the bank. Just a few members, and people started joining when they found out about it. But at the beginning, we had enough money for trophies, and we talked to people. I think we held it at John Jay High School. I'm trying to remember the first state meet, whether it was at a high school. I remember, and but teachers were donating paper, like paper for the copying machine.
Wow.
Some teachers brought their own copying machines from school. But we didn't have that much money that we could splurge on anything like that.
I will say that organization, you yourself, I mean, it's just done so much good for the math and science students in the state. So
Yeah,
that's something to be proud of. Your involvement with Team SCA at an early stage, especially.
yes, and but anyway, but the thing is, when they were getting started, they said we need somebody to be president of the organization, and we want you to be the president. And I said, really? He says, yeah, but don't I have to run for office? He says, we're going to have, this is the part that I remember very clearly. So, but I'm going to tell you what I think happened. I think that they said that they were going to have an election, but it was already free. It was already guaranteed that I was going to win. Whether I won or not, I was going to win. So I was president of TMSCA. Several years later, I became director of TMSCA, and I wrote tests for TMSCA, number sense, calculator, and mathematics. And I did middle school. A lot of things that I did for TMSCA and UIL through the years, but TMSCA, when I was president, because of the organization now having viability, because of the state directors writing the tests, uh, and because now we started getting a single person to write the test instead of a party, we started making more money. And very quickly, from having only maybe $800 in the account or $600 in the account, we had like $3,000 in the account. And all of a sudden it blossomed and blossomed, and we had 40,000, 60,000. It just grew and grew and grew.
Well, there's demand for it. There's a
Yeah.
demand statewide for math and science like that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad it's blown up, and I'm glad that it's reached the stage where it's reached currently, because
Yeah.
math and science is important in the marketplace.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I do want to ask you. So You're looking great. You look great, Mr. Ramirez. You look awesome.
Thank
You look
you.
strong. So this might be a premature question, but I do want to ask, what do you think your legacy will be? I know you wrote a couple of books, The Wizard Maker and Magical Wisdom. Would you like to comment on those books and your potential legacy?
Well, the legacy is my two rules that I live by. Basically, that, and then I'll expand a little bit. First of all, I want people to remember me as the person that lived by and taught the following two rules: do what you enjoy, and do it to the best of your ability. Those two simple rules is what I live by. And when I got married, that's what I lived by. That's what I taught my children. That's what I taught everybody that I ever taught or tutored or coached. And even the teachers, when I did in services, I would tell them the same story to kind of get them to realize that sometimes in life, don't make it very complicated. Just do what you enjoy and do it to the best of your ability. And if you can do that, you'll be happy. So for me, it seems like I was always happy. Now, I didn't show it because I didn't smile a lot. And but I was happy almost all the time. And um, and just to tell you the idea of being happy and not smiling a lot, one time I was in a math class, in a geometry class at McAllen High School, and there was a girl sitting toward the back, and she was leaning on her desk, and the desk fell, and she fell down. And then the other girls started laughing, and then the girl gets up and sits down. Her face is all red. She's embarrassed. And then she says, "Look, everybody, Mr. Ramirez is smiling." She had to fall down for me to smile in class, because I was always very serious, because I loved what I was doing. And I shared that joy of teaching to them. When I was teaching, I would always tell them, I want to take you in a journey, and I want you to follow, go with me, and we're going to take risks, even things that I don't know for sure are going to be true. I'm going to try anyway, and that's the only way I'm going to find out whether that works or doesn't work. And so I was always, every class that I taught or when I tutored, I always try and take the students in a journey from the basics to very advanced complex. And people are always astounded. They always say, "Mr. Ramirez, how can you tutor a second grader, an eighth grader, and a senior all in the same year?" You know, that takes somebody special that can communicate with kids of any ages. And I said, well, because remember, I wanted to be a teacher since I was a sixth grader, and I observed teachers, and I think I reached my goal of being the best teacher that could be. And that was all that I always wanted in life.
Wow, wow.
That's my legacy, is being among the best teachers ever.
I concur. Your reputation precedes you. Students, have told your story. The McHi Wizards, it all points towards that. But I would also say, you're also not just a teacher nowadays. You're the entrepreneur. You're the rammaterials.com guy. How's been your experience in the business world, entrepreneurship? How's that been?
Well, it started back in 1983. I started selling materials, and at that time I called it Raw Materials Inc. Later on, I realized I shouldn't put the word Inc. on it because it wasn't incorporated. I just thought it was cool to put that name. So later on, it just became Raw Materials, and the website is www.rammaterials.com. Uh, Initially, I started writing materials only for high school students, and it was high school number sense. At that time, calculator was barely starting. Later on, I added calculator and mathematics. But then, if in my case, I started developing. People would tell me in the valley, Mr. Ramirez, would you write the tournament test for our tournament? I said, yeah, I'll write them for you. The number says the calculator and the math. And I told them, I'll go ahead and write tests for you. And because of me writing tests, all of a sudden, there was about 14 or 15 tournaments in South Texas. And then I started sponsoring a junior high tournament at the high school, two tournaments that had junior high and high school together. And the junior high coaches started saying, Mr. Ramirez, when are you going to write materials for us? So I started writing middle school tests for students. And then I started writing tests for tournaments. And then we had a lot of tournaments for junior high. So then one time I started deciding to sponsor an elementary tournament. And then the elementary coaches told me, Mr. Ramirez, when are you going to write tests for us? So I started writing elementary materials. And then I started writing tests for tournaments. And there were a lot of elementary tournaments. So now in South Texas, well, in the entire state of Texas now, there's a lot of tournaments. I was writing tests for a lot of places from Midland to El Paso to Denton, Dallas, Houston, Bridge City, San Antonio, Corpus, Laredo, the Valley, everywhere. And but the thing is, because of COVID did impact me negatively because even though I could tutor the materials, since a lot of kids were not attending in-person tournaments, I think parents and teachers were not buying materials, very much materials. So I was what I was selling before drastically dropped, and it's still kind of getting a little bit better. There were a few more tournaments in person this year, so I'm hoping that COVID gets under control and that regular in-person tournaments can resume, and then my business will start improving again.
Mr. Ramirez, I'm so happy to have you here because you bring such a wealth of wisdom, experience, perspective. You bring to the table, what just only so few people have. So what I would like to ask you to do, well, I know you already shared your philosophy. Do what you like and do the best you can at it. So I love that
Yes.
philosophy. But if you could, I would like you to address three groups of people and give them some advice. Students, coaches, and parents. What would you like to tell students, coaches, and parents as they embark on their own UIL journeys?
Well, to students, I would tell them to make sure that they set goals in everything that they do, whether it's school or their lives. That they set goals, and they should not set impossible goals, but goals that they know that if they work hard, they're going to achieve. And they should never give up. Uh, never give up. If you make an error, just continue. Try and learn from your mistakes and try and improve and get better. And students should follow those two simple rules. And I think that if they believe in themselves and they try their best, you can ask a parent or a coach cannot or a teacher. Nobody can ask you to do more than your best. And I've told people a lot of times that sometimes if you go someplace and you're hoping that you're the state champion or the regional champion or the district champion and you don't achieve it, at least you do it with your head up because you knew you tried your best. Uh, I feel bad for the kids that say I should have done this or I should have done that. Because I should have, it's too late. You can't do anything about it. So do it while you can. So it's like that commercial, just do it, just do it, uh, and um, and believe in yourself, and and try and surround yourself with people that believe in you, and that share your vision of what you want out of life, and try and stay away from people that will drain your energy. But
Good,
that's what I would tell students.
good.
As far as coaches, in your case, the first thing that I would tell you is when you first start, especially if you don't know what you're doing, uh, you need to find somebody that can help you, or materials that can help you. And now there's a lot more websites that will take you, that will help you get materials. Because back then, everybody would used to say, if I only knew how, I could do it myself. I'm very energetic. I'm a hard worker. I learn fast, but I just don't have the materials. So now there's no excuse. You can go to rammaterials.com. You can go to Education Academy, and since I said Education Academy, that was one of my other top students that I coached, that I tutored, and his name was um, um, Andrew. Well, Javier Andres Garcia. I used to call him Andrew, and Andrew became UIL state champion when he was in high school, and calculator state champion. And he was one of the best students that I ever taught. So that's why it's very difficult picking a best, because they were all excellent and were very, very good. Whether it was Juan Raul Lopez, or Mero Gutierrez, or Andrew Garcia. Andrew Garcia has a website right now, Education Academy, and you can look it up online. And he does also tutoring, and they're going to start selling materials in the near future. But they do tutoring for all grade levels. They do preparation for SAT and ACT. And but as far as coaches are concerned, first of all, connect with materials. Then try and make a connection with a person.
Lost you, buddy.
From Azle, Texas. Uh, Andy Zapata was a coach from Azle High School, and that's one of the more dominant math teams and science teams ever, and they were excellent. And Because if you can get in touch with a person, or whether it be a person in your own school, or past or coaches, or when you go to your first tournament, make friends with other people, and try and glean from them information, and you'll be surprised how many of them are willing to help you
Sure.
or point you in the right direction.
Cool.
But again, do it because you enjoy it, and do the best you can. But as a coach, you should never give up on your kids. You should always believe the best in them. You should always treat them with respect, the way you want to be treated, and be a role model for them,
Cool.
because you'll be surprised how many of them are going to emulate what you do. So you need to be very careful that you're an excellent role model.
Sure.
As far as parents are concerned, um, parents, uh, the number one advice that I give them is be supportive of your child. It doesn't matter whether they're a state champion or just participating in number sense, calculator, or math, but be very supportive of them, and don't be disappointed at their performances. Give them an opportunity to shine. Let them practice, let them learn, let them get help. As a parent, if you need help, look at one of those websites that I mentioned. And there are other ones. If they just look at Google, there's another one that I'm trying to remember. If they just look up Dr. Numsen,
Yes.
Numsen, Dr. Numsen, he was a student from Lockney, Texas, and he says that he learned most of what he learned from me, and he became state champion using my materials and the help of his coach. But the coach depended a lot on my materials every year. Every year she would say, "Leo, what's the new workbook that you have, and let me have it." So if they get materials or help, they might get tutors if they can afford tutors. Just talk to the owner of the website and find out what is the cheapest thing they can buy that can help them, or buy the most for the money. And that's why in my website I have what I called an elementary bundle, a middle school bundle, and a high school bundle, and those are the best materials for those. So instead of being on the phone for half an hour trying to recommend what workbooks and whatever, all I tell them is just buy the bundle. You'll get number sense, calculator, math, and you'll get not only practice workbooks, you'll get practice tests, you'll get DVDs,
Sure.
videos, and it's very affordable. In high school, I think it's $150 for the whole bundle, and in elementary, I think it's 120. Uh, and I even have one um, for math league, and the math league bundle is worth $70.
Better yet, get the school to pay for it.
Yes. Yeah, you should try and get the school to pay for it. 'Cause many times the
That's what I'm
schools
gonna
don't
do.
order it. Yeah, the schools don't order it because they don't know that it's available.
Yes.
And if the parents were to tell the teachers about these websites, maybe the teachers will do it.
And
The one
hopefully they
thing that
listen to this. Hopefully they listen to this.
Yeah. The other thing, parents need to be careful when they work with their students, that they don't that they treat them with respect, just like I treat them with respect. Because I've sometimes I've listened to parents that when I'm tutoring and the parent is there, the parent sometimes says, "Why don't you get it? Are you stupid, or what's wrong with you? Why don't you get it, Mr. Ramirez just explained it to you. He explained it very simply." And I don't want that to ever happen. Parents should always be supportive. If a student can't get it, try and find another way to explain it, or try and find a teacher at school to help them. And But at least now there's more ways to get help. The internet, especially YouTube, there's a lot of mathematics that you can learn to YouTube, and that's also for recommendation for coaches. YouTube, also in the internet, they can go to Khan Academy,
Yes.
Khan Academy. Khan Academy, the person that does the lectures for Khan Academy, Mr. Khan, he teaches exactly like I teach. Everything step by step by step, and I don't assume anything, and I make sure that they understand from the basics to the more complex, and that's exactly what Khan Academy does.
Some great advice, Mr. Leo Ramirez. Great advice. I have a question. So, what does the future hold for you, legendary coach, Mr. Leo Ramirez Sr.? What's the future hold?
Well, I still enjoy tutoring and would like to continue it more. Um, the only thing is that now sometimes I get more tired, and uh, uh, but I still enjoy tutoring, so I want to continue tutoring. I really want to spend more and more time with my grandchildren. I've been doing a lot more of that lately, and in fact, we might be going to visit my grandson, my son Michael, that lives in Katy. I have three children. My oldest son is Leo Jr., my middle son is Michael, and my daughter is Jennifer. And I have five grandchildren. and my wife Rosa Stella, and they've been very supportive through the years, sharing me with other people, and that's why it seems like now I have a new hero, my wife. She's been very, very supportive of everything that I do, and I don't think I could continue doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for her.
Great shout out to the family and to the wife in particular.
Yeah.
That's great. Um, Mr. Leo Ramirez, any parting words or final thoughts as we conclude this interview?
Well, the thing is, in general, we've covered a wide range of topics, and um, but I just want people to know that I still love what I do. I still try and improve every day. Uh, I I do everything the best that I can. I'm always trying to find better ways to do things. When I don't know something, I'm not afraid to ask. Uh, in fact, there are two questions that I couldn't answer uh, earlier this week, and I'm going to ask Aman, that boy. He's another boy that's a ninth grader that I told you about. That's very, very good. Aman Sarandon. I think it's Sariden.
Right.
Sarandon. Um, uh, but I've been tutoring. I think that that's what I want to continue doing is just continue improving, and but really more than anything, enjoying my family.
Absolutely. You know, Mr. Leo Ramirez Sr., I want to give you a heartfelt thank you. You know, I've heard of you many, many times. I heard about the McHi Wizards, and to have you, their legendary coach, on this program, sharing your knowledge, sharing your wisdom, sharing your stories, the perspective, that's gold to me. And I just want to give you a very heartfelt thank you very much.
Yes. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, Saul. This was a great opportunity for me to share my story. And it's like when you told me about my book. My book shares the story. It's basically a summary of what we were discussing on my speech. It starts from early childhood to becoming wanting to become a teacher as a 6 year old. Uh, my my developing years, how I became interested in number sense, and how I became the wizard maker. So my book is really a summary of that. And the other one, the Math Wisdom book, those are blogs. They came from blogs that I was writing, and I thought, golly, a lot of these are not even mathematics. They are things that everybody should be aware of and should learn. But I thought maybe somebody may not be trying to look at blogs, but maybe they just get this $15 book. That's what I sell it for online. If they get this $15 book, and it has about 150, 160 different blogs, uh, I would say maybe about 50% is, maybe 45% is math, but the rest of it is everyday life.
So, two wonderful books, The Wizard Maker and Magical Wisdom. So, I recommend those books. Absolutely, absolutely. You know, Mr. Ramirez, I'm near Houston. I know you have a son in Katy. I hope you consider me a friend. So, if you
Yeah.
ever get near, you know, you got my phone number. Let's go have a taco. Let's talk. I really appreciate this, and I hope you will consider me a friend.
Yes. What
I
I want you to do is, if you can send me your address, your contact information
absolutely.
again, just resend me the all of the entire contact information, and I'll put it on my computer. And one of these days that I go to Katie, I'll make you aware of it, and maybe we can meet somewhere.
That would be awesome. To have
Okay.
lunch with a legend. That would be so awesome, Mr. Ramirez. I would really appreciate that.
Well, I really would look forward to it.
Great, great. So, thank you so very much. I wish you the best and farewell, Mr. Ramirez.
Well, thank you, Saul, and have a great evening.
You too, you too. Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
All right, and we're back to recording. After our first initial recording, Mr. Ramirez remembered a few names he wanted to make sure he mentioned and a few more stories. So, Mr. Ramirez, please take the floor. Let us know what you want to mention.
Well, one thing that I didn't mention the first time that I talked to you is when I was at McAllen High School. Not only was I the teacher of all my three children, but I was also their mathematics coach. And my three children were Leo Jr., Michael, and Jennifer. And they were outstanding students. It was kind of interesting when they were in my class that they never called me Mr. Ramirez.
Oh,
And I called them by their name when I would ask them questions. I treated them just like everybody else. So I called them by their name and asked them questions, and they were always right when I asked them. And But the thing is that before they left the room, they would always come by my desk, tap my desk, and they would say, "Bye, puppy." And
oh
so
wow.
so that was their way of acknowledging that they knew I was their dad. But during the class, they were just students like everybody else. And on the math team, they were very successful when they competed. My oldest son, Leo Jr., uh, he his senior year, he finished third in calculator
Oh wow.
at the state meet. And Up to this day, he still remembers one problem that he missed.
Oh,
It was a Sakatoa problem that are very simple,
yeah.
and he knows how to. He had done hundreds and hundreds of those and never missed them, but he missed one, and that cost him the state championship because the difference between first and third was 8 points,
Oh wow. What a
and
story.
that cost him 9 points, or he would have been state champion.
Wow.
And then my son Michael, he advanced to the state meet. Uh, uh, when he was in school, and he didn't place, but he did very well because unless I'm wrong, the first time he went to the state meet, he was a freshman, and he was a member of the Wizard team that qualified for calculator.
Oh wow.
And But he was very good. Well, both Leo and him were very good in number sense and calculator and mathematics. And Michael went to regional in those three events. Uh, and uh, and then my daughter Jennifer, she never got to go to the state meet. But what I was very proud of her is that when it came to the district meet, she scored her all-time high, and for the first time, she scored a 300 on a calculator test at the state meet, at the district meet. So I was
Wow.
very proud that she did her best when it counted the most, and she finished fourth at district. But as far as classes, all of them were very smart. They did very well. Jennifer graduated fourth in her graduating class,
Wow.
and but all my kids, they behaved very well. They were very well disciplined. Uh, I admire them for all they had to do because, in a way, they had a lot of pressure on them because of who I was. So I think a lot of people expected a lot from them, and they
Well,
put a lot of pressure on them. And for them to perform and compete and enjoy what they were doing, I'm still very proud of them for everything that they did when they were at McAllen High School. And So I had failed to mention them, and I thought that was a part of the Wizard story.
yes, absolutely. First of all, I can only imagine what it must feel like to teach your own children. And second of
Oh,
all, you're clearly one proud papa. But I will say, I bet you your children are pretty proud of you too.
oh yes. And yeah, they they admired me and idolized me, just like I admired them and I idolized them. And uh, but even the Michael, the middle child, and Jennifer, the youngest child, uh, even when they were younger, I would take them to tournaments with me, so they would see what it would feel like. So sometimes it'd be a Saturday, and I get him up in the morning, and I would take him in the van with me, because my wife maybe was busy doing something else, and so I would take him with me. So everybody on the Wizards knew them, and they treated them almost like a member of the team, and they got to know a lot of the Wizards because of all of that close contact, and so that was a very great experience for them and for me.
Awesome. So awesome. So awesome. So,
Yeah.
lots of love, I can tell. Lots of love. Mucho amor. That's great. That's the way a family should be. Awesome.
Yes.
I know that there were several wizards that you wanted to mention also.
Yes. Probably the wizard that I admired the most was Leonel Gonzalez. He passed away several years ago,
Oh,
and that was part of his story why I admired him so much, because uh, I remember when he was in high school. One time I took him to the doctor. He was very, very ill, and yet the next day, that was on a Friday. The next day, he was still very ill, and even though I told him he didn't have to go, he said, "But you all need me, so I'm gonna go." Uh, and yet I could tell by his performance that as the day was progressing, he was not doing as well as he usually does. And it was because he was feeling worse and worse and worse. And
wow.
he was in a lot of pain.
Wow.
But they just showed me the character that he had. Uh, and not only that, plus in his when he was in college, and later on, he was involved. He had a brain tumor, and he had surgery for the brain tumor, and he was losing his eyesight. And one time, he was driving, and he was losing consciousness. So he just eased the car to the side of the road and just passed out.
Wow.
And even after the brain surgery, I remember he was working part time at a driving grocery, and he was assaulted by gun in a robbery at the store he was in, and they hit him in the back of the head with where the surgery was. They hit him in the back of the head with the butt of the gun. And another time, he went to visit his grandmother when she was in Mexico in Reynosa. She was ill, and he wanted to visit her. And when he came out, he noticed that he had a flat tire that wasn't there before. And then he got down to fix it. When he was fixing it, somebody came from behind and pointed a gun at his head, and they told him, "I got you how I want you." And he never knew who the person was or why they were looking for him. She was, he was, but he fought him off. The gun went off. Apparently, the other person got shot in the leg. And then Lionel, he had fixed the tire, but the jack was still on the car. He just took off and left the person there that was assaulting him with a gun. And so many other instances of at one time he was attacked at knife point. Uh, and yet, if you knew him, he was the kindest, noblest person you would ever meet. He was always very quiet. He was a team leader, and he always tried his best at everything he did. And So when he passed away a couple of years ago, that was very sad for me and the Wizards. Everybody that knew him knew that he was a special person. And I remember one time telling him, Lionel, why are you always smiling? All the bad things that happened to you in your life. He says, well, even though I've been hit by a drunk driver crossing the street, uh, even though everything that happened to me, I'm still alive and I'm happy to be alive. And, and I told him, golly, I don't know whether I could have survived all these things, different things that happened to you, and you never gave up. You always were positive. So he's one of the one. He's probably the one that I admire the most because he went through a lot in his life, and he lived his life to the fullest. And he had a son. His son became a football player in high school. He taught at Nicky Rowe High School, and he coached there. And he had some very good teams when he was coaching there. And we were in the same district, so that was interesting. Coaching against my own student. That was the only time. Well, no, there was another boy that I coached against. I remember Alvaro Leal. He was at PSJ High School, and Alvaro Leal uh, um, was a calculator coach for PSJ High School, and they were very successful. Won many state
He's
championships.
still there, just so you
Yeah, he's
know.
still there. Yes,
Wow.
and but another student that I wanted to mention was Ray Saloom. Ray Saloom um, had a photographic memory. I remember one time we went to this tournament and they pieced together a calculator test. They took one page one from one test, page two from another test, page three from a third test,
Mhm.
and uh, and I remember that when he got in the van after the tournament, he said, "Ms. Ramirez, do you know that page one of that test was the test we took at Falfurrias? It was page one from the Falfurrias test. And
Wow.
page two on that test was a test that was done in Westlaco. And page three was in Harlingen. And page four was Sherryland." He
Wow.
knew exactly where those tests, the pages came from. And then he even brought me the test on Monday to prove what he had said. You know what
Wow.
I'm saying?
Wow. Ray
uh,
Saloon.
and but he was very good in everything. But he was the one wizard that scored three perfect scores in number sense,
Wow.
and that was incredible to do that because it was very difficult to score a perfect score in number sense. But he scored three perfect scores, and he qualified for the state meet in uh, number sense and math, and he played third in math. I was surprised that he didn't do as well in number sense as I thought he would. But the only thing I do know is that, like all the other wizards, he enjoyed what he was doing and he tried his best. And that's all that I always ask of him and my children and everybody else. And another student that had a perfect score in number sense was Scott Margot. And Scott Margot was state champion in TMSCA number sense, and he was very good in mathematics and calculator. And his senior year, he placed second in calculator, and he was another of the outstanding wizards that I remember. There was besides Homero Gutierrez, the year that Homero placed second at the state meet, I had another boy by the name of Jose Ochoa that placed third at the state meet, and he was very good. And But no, there were many outstanding students, uh, and I can't finish without saying a big thank you to my wife, because my wife supported me the entire time, and in many tournaments She went with me. She helped me drive on long trips.
Wow.
And she helped me take students. When I was busy grading, she would take them out to eat at restaurants. And she was always very supportive.
Awesome.
And my wife's name is Rosa Stella. But so those are some of the people that I wanted to go ahead and make sure that I included.
I'm so glad you did that. I'm so glad that, because you spent all that time in practice. You spent all those Saturdays together. It's more than just a competition. It's more than just a math team. It really becomes family. When done right, it becomes family. And you look at them, you become very, very close, man.
Yes. I never forgot that I did my best that after the last meet of a student, when I knew they were seniors and it was their last meet, I would get off the van and give them a hug, because that was the last time
Yes.
that they were going to be with me in the van. And so those were hard times when I knew I was going to see him again, but not as members of the Wizards. Like I told him, you're always going to be Wizards to me. And that's the way that I feel. And up to this day, we used to have reunions once in a while. And we haven't had one in quite a while. We had one in San Antonio where we gathered some of the ex-Wizards and and my 3 kids were there since they were members. And those reunions were very good. I would barbecue and then we'd play football and had a good time. But like you said, they were not just students to me; they were family, and I love them just as much as my own kids. And they knew how much I loved them because I would tell them how much I loved them.
So beautiful, Mr. Ramirez. So beautiful. There's a reason you're a legendary coach, man. You've impacted so many lives through the years, and you still impact lives. And I can't thank you enough for sharing these stories, sharing the beauty of UIL and Team SCA, and all the beauty that happens, when we get together and pursue math as a team. And I can't thank you enough for sharing that beauty with my audience.
Well, I do again want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to reminisce on some other Wizards and my wife and my kids. And I look forward to seeing the finished product once you complete it. And thank you so much.
The pleasure is mine, Mr. Ramirez. The pleasure of preserving your wisdom, your perspective, your stories, and all that beauty. That pleasure is mine, and I'm just so thankful you were willing to share it with my audience. Wow, what wonderful energy from legendary coach, Mr. Leo Ramirez Sr. He shared a wealth of wisdom. He had a great nature to him. It was just a pure joy to have that conversation with him. I thank him immensely. Now, let me take a moment and ask that if you enjoy this sort of content, that you take a moment, hit the subscription button and the notification bell, smash that like button, and leave a comment below. It really helps out with the YouTube algorithm, and let's spread this content, let's spread this joy to as many people as possible. I have plenty of wonderful things in store for this channel. I appreciate your support. My name is Saul Cantu, and this is Texas Math